Rogers TV. The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm David Shearman. Welcome to Politically Speaking. My guest today is Warden Brian Milne of Grey County. And on this cold January day where we are recording it. Now, Brian, I just saw something that it's going to be extremely cold down in your neck of the woods in South Grey County, going into the minus 30s tonight. Is that going to affect things down on the farm?
Well, the fellow that habitually wears shorts probably won't be. Yeah, there might be a few water bowls, a few water lines, a few other things froze over by morning, I suspect. But the black flies will not be bad. I can guarantee you that.
Good. Now, will if you need the tractor to bring the hay around, will you get that started?
As long as the hydro's working, we can plug them in, and yeah, they'll likely start. They'll groan, much like I groan in the morning if it's that cold, but usually they'll fire up. Yep.
Good. Well, stay warm, stay safe. For everyone, it's winter in Grey County, which has arrived with a bang.
Yes, indeed it has. And you know what? If we're going to have winter, I'm okay with this. It's this swinging between +5 and -10 and rain and snow and I hate all that. Just if we're going to have winter, let's have winter.
Sure. Now, you have to admit that it does have a salutary effect on the snow control budget.
Fair enough. It does so. But we did pretty good through December. I dare say we gained a little bit of breathing room there for sure. Yep.
And I have to say to you that I really appreciate there's the Ontario 511 with their traffic cameras, but Grey County has also got quite a number of traffic cameras around which you can use to determine what road conditions are really like.
Yes, we do, and they're well used, from what I understand. I use them myself, as a matter of fact, from time to time. Yeah, they're a great tool to see what's really going on out there, as you say.
Absolutely, and there is one right at your key corner there in Dundalk, Highway 10, and right there.
Yeah, there's and I think there's a couple down at Cohen at the bottom end at 89 and Grey Road 14. One facing west, I believe, and one facing north, so you get a good view of what the county road's like, and the highway for that matter. And right. There might be one on the west end too. I'm not sure where it is, but yeah, Grey Road 9 and Highway 6. I believe there's one there as well.
Yep, lots of them around. So a good way to keep track of the winter, so to speak. But let's kick it off by telling you, before we started, you said you just flown in from St. Mary's High School.
Yes, indeed.
Now, you weren't teaching, were you?
No. I'm not teaching. I'm not a teacher. Although I didn't ask anybody if they learned anything, but hopefully they did. We were invited down, myself and 3 other staff, including the clerk and our climate action coordinator and one of our planners. We went over to St. Mary's. We were invited to come over to a civics class and just talk about municipal government and what it is and what it does and that kind of thing. So it was interesting. I love doing that kind of stuff because, there's a lot of really interesting things, as you probably know, and your 3 listeners, that municipal government does. And it's always interesting to go and tell people more and give them a better understanding of what municipal government does, because there's lots of careers there and interesting things that people can do for a career.
Sure. And I think it also points out that you're in your role of warden, you're not just a guy who sits presiding at meetings and, showing up for meals and glad handing and all that stuff. This is a little bit of a different kind of work that you do to talk about the municipal government.
Well, that's right. And you're absolutely right. There are many facets to this job. And this is one in particular that I quite enjoy, talking to people about what municipal government does. And it gives people, I generally find that a lot of people really don't know what the different levels of government do. Although if somebody wants to complain about something, they can usually find my phone number, but um, I find it useful to talk to people, and it also gives me an opportunity to understand more about what's going on in the community's mind, what people are thinking, what do they, what do they want to see, what don't they want to see, those sorts of things. So anytime I can get out into the community, whether it's at a school or even at the grocery store, I love talking to people, and it's really, as I say, a really enjoyable part of the job.
Now, let me ask you a question about the students. I happened to interview a couple of St. Mary's students recently for another Rogers show, and I was very impressed at their sharpness, their quality of the work they were doing, and what kind of questions were the students at St. Mary's asking of you?
Well, no specific question jumps out at my mind, but what we did, the four of us that were there from the county, we asked the students some questions, and it was interesting to hear the response. And I would dare say that the responses that we got were not unlike what you would get from any ratepayer. One of the questions we asked was, what would you like to see in the community, or more of, or less of, whatever? And typically the answer come back, well, we'd like to see more recreation. We'd like to see more paved roads. We'd like to see less potholes. We'd like to see more services, be they childcare, paramedic, long-term care, whatever. They want to see more of that. So in that respect, they were not unlike any typical taxpayer. But what I have to put back to them then as a politician, or as a policymaker, say to them, okay, we can do that. Absolutely, we can do that. But what are you prepared to pay for it? Because none of that comes free, and none of it is cheap. Well, for the most part, they sat back and thought, well, how much is it going to cost me? Well, I mean, it's going to cost you a lot more. For instance, one young lady, she was very interested in paramedic services. And in fact, I believe she said her family member works for the county in paramedic services. And they do a tremendous job for us, for all of us. They do a really good job. But the reality is that there's different response times right across the county. So in the middle of Owen Sound, the response time is very quick. In the middle of Southgate, it's not so much. But it's just because geography. But we can give you a really fast response time in Southgate, but it's going to cost a lot of money to do that. And are we prepared to do that? So in that respect, the questions and the responses we got from the students were very similar to most ratepayers, I dare say. So on the whole, I would say they were a very well-informed group once they kind of got their head around what does the county do, and what does it cost. So I found it very interesting to chat with the students.
One of the more interesting shows I've done in the distant past was with Randy Scherzer, who I think, is he still head of planning?
He's not the senior. Well, he's very much involved with planning, but he's the deputy CAO currently.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And my point is this: that planning is also an under or a misunderstood area often about what can and can't be done, and what planning really means, and what the process is. And so, did you find them reasonably well informed on the planning process, or was it sort of, gee, why can't we do this?
Yeah. No, actually, there wasn't a lot of discussion around planning, in spite of the fact that we had a planner with us. Because for most people, unless you actually need to go through a process for a severance or an official plan amendment or something of that nature, most people are quite happy to be oblivious to the planning process, because it's a complex, nuanced service, and there weren't a lot of questions around planning. Most of it was a grade 10 class, so a lot of the inquiries around recreation and those kinds of services that the students themselves are probably using currently.
Sure. Now you're going back. You're multitasking today because you're doing this interview between classes, and you're going back. Now, what are you doing in the second part of your day?
I'm going back at 1:55 for a grade 11 law class, which I'm looking very much forward to because I don't know much about law, other than I do from time to time break the law on the highway in terms of speed. But I suspect there'll be a lot more nuanced questions around, as you say, planning, around why we do things the way we do them, that kind of thing, land use issues, those kinds of things just naturally are more involved with the law. So I look forward to their questions as well.
Good. Good. And to be clear, you were invited, I presume, by either the class or the teacher?
By the teacher, yes. And you know what? I cannot remember his name now, but wait. Kyle Watts was the name of the teacher. Kyle Watts. Very, very engaging teacher. And I dare say if I was in high school, he'd be one of my favorite teachers because I quite liked the way he handled the students.
Good. Sounds like, as the expression goes, the kids are all right.
The kids are all right. And yeah, you're right, David. I mean, I talk to lots of people in the course of a day, and a lot of people will say, oh, kids these days, I don't understand them. I don't know what they're thinking. You know what? Every generation thinks the generation behind them is going to in a handbasket. But I don't believe that. I believe every generation brings their own skills, their own nuances, their own wants to the table. And from what I see, the kids are all right, as you say.
Well, Brian, I hate to tell you, but a long, long time ago, our grandparents and parents said the same thing about us.
Absolutely, they did. And my parents probably still say the same about me. I don't know.
You never know. You never know.
That's right.
You never know. Well, this kind of conversation that you've had with students sounds actually very energizing.
Yes, it is. It is. It's very refreshing compared to the day-to-day stuff that I deal with.
Well, speaking of day-to-day stuff, I noticed that the county is taking another look at its land acknowledgement policy, and land acknowledgement, of course, is something that has come to the fore since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission presented its recommendations, and I believe one of the recommendations was to begin to include land acknowledgements as part of a meeting, especially government meetings. And what has happened and what will happen at Grey County?
Well, I guess it's been a few years now that the county and then, as you say, after the report came down from the government or from the Reconciliation Committee to look at doing different things. And one of them, as you say, was the land acknowledgement. And so the county readily took that up and created a policy and created a land acknowledgement that will be read at the start of all council meetings. And it served us well. But towards the end of the year last year, I went to Rob Hatton, our communications person, and said, Rob, this land use, this land acknowledgement is getting a little long in the tooth. And I think we maybe need to change it up a little bit. And so Rob agreed. So he said, leave it with me. So he and myself talked to different people about what is the purpose of the land acknowledgement and how it could be crafted. And it was readily apparent that the land acknowledgement needed to be a number of things. One of them is it needs to be heartfelt. It doesn't need to you don't want to just recite whatever is in front of you. It needs to be relevant. and there needs to be a level of empathy in it, because that's the nature of any acknowledgement. So we had some training for all of council lined up for our first meeting last week, but unfortunately the lady that was coming to help us through that learning was taken ill. She's better now, of course. Anyway, she couldn't come. So we missed that. So I'm hoping through that training that we can learn more about how to craft a better land acknowledgement, and one that better acknowledges where we are, county, in our journey of reconciliation with the First Nations. So it's a rolling process. It's a learning process, and I'm looking forward to it because I very much value the First Nations in our communities and what they bring to the community as a whole. And the challenge I have as warden is that if I start to talk off the cuff, as you probably know, I can go in all sorts of directions, and for too long likely. So I need something. I need some kind of structure in front of me for that land acknowledgement. And so what that's going to look like, or how it might change over the course of the year, is to be seen. But that's sort of where we're headed with that land acknowledgement piece.
Dare I say that a land acknowledgement might be more organic?
Yes.
Than and fluid,
yes.
Keeping the same themes, but maybe a little more personal.
Yeah, no, that'd be fair to say. But as I say, the challenge I have is if I'm doing 2 meetings a month, well, 3, 4 meetings a month with my own council in Southgate, how many ways can you say it? I don't. Yeah. So there needs to be some structure or framework, but beyond that, there needs to be room for some flexibility or fluidity, as you say. So I'm looking forward to it.
One of the things that I found interesting is that if you're in a particular place, to find out exactly what treaty that land is on. For example, where I'm sitting is, I believe it's Treaty 45.5.
Yeah.
But down in Southgate, where your farm is, you might want to ask yourself, what treaty is this land? What this farm is on what treaty land?
Yeah.
Find out that, and it's readily available.
Yes.
But and because we have a fairly complexified treaty history in this area, you can be in one spot and just move a few kilometers, and you're in another spot that's governed by another treaty.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kind of like municipal boundaries.
Kind of
different.
Yeah. No, that's
benefits.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
But the genesis of the whole thing, or the idea of the whole thing, is to acknowledge, without getting too technical, the good people that were here before us, and were stewards of the land and looked after things so that we have the benefit of that. And we need to do the same thing for those that are coming after us. So it's on one hand, it's simple, but on the other hand, it's complicated. So as most things are in politics. So I'm hoping I get it right. Well, we're going to try to get it right.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. I've heard it said, intent matters.
Oh yeah,
intent matters. So we'll see. Look forward to hearing more about that conversation, because I'm sure that it will take form over the next year or so.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah. Now, speaking of meetings, we've got a fairly significant meeting coming up in the next week or two, and that's ROMA, Rural Ontario Municipalities
Municipal
Rural
Association.
Association. Yes.
Yep.
And that's a big clam bake in the middle of every winter when the land's frozen and the farmers can come in from the fields and don't have to worry about it, about the crops or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, forgetting the cattle. But by the same token, historically, it's held in midwinter, and the flip side is AMO in the middle of summer. But what are you going to Roma, first of all?
I am going. Yes, the county has. I think there might be about half a dozen councillors from Grey County Council attending, and we have a number of delegations to talk to various ministers about various things. And we've been fairly successful this year. And I know you're forming in your mind the question, well, what are they? And I don't have them listed in front of me, so I can't tell you exactly what they are. But one of them is with Minister of Long-Term Care. And I was going to say Calandra, but he came over to Municipal Affairs from
Sylvia Jones, I believe.
No. She's Minister of Health.
Minister of Health, that's right.
Anyway, we're going to speak to the Minister of Long-Term Care because, as you know, we are redeveloping Rockwood Terrace at Durham. We're building a new long-term care facility there. And we, on a technicality, in my mind, we missed out, the county, and I say we missed out on a construction subsidy. And but we were assured last year, as a matter of fact, at Roma, that a new program would be coming forthwith. So far, it has not. So we're very interested to make sure that the minister knows that we were not promised, but assured that a new program would be coming forward and that we should proceed with the project. So we have proceeded, but no construction subsidy. So that's what we want to talk to the Minister of Long-Term Care about and remind the minister that we're looking for some help to complete that build.
And knowing that particular project is absolutely essential. I'm in Rockwood Terrace on a regular basis, and it is absolutely essential to have that building upgraded.
And that new build very much aligns with the provincial priorities to generate new long-term care beds right across the province, and we're keen and have been keen right from the get-go to do that. But as I said earlier, we need a little bit of help to do, or we'd appreciate a little bit of help to do that in a more economical fashion.
Sure. Is housing going to be one of the meetings that you'll be having on housing at all, or is that sort of?
I don't think so. Not this go around.
Trusting the process. Are you trusting the process then?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's not. Those are the kinds of things that, just so that people know, it doesn't happen instantly. But it's kind of like getting the direct ear of the minister or the staff, or sometimes it is the parliamentary assistant, I think, who's sitting there as well.
As a lower tier mayor, we in Southgate, we asked for a couple of delegations as well, and we got one with Matthew Ray, who is the deputy minister, minister's associate for municipal affairs. And what we want to talk to him about is the promise that was made by the preceding minister, Steve Clark, about making municipalities whole. And if you remember back when Bill 23 was first brought forward, and that dealt with the development charges and how they could be charged and how they could be implemented, that kind of thing. And that bill has cost Southgate I believe it's close to $2.5 million of development charges we've had to forego because of that legislation. Minister Clark at the time said he recognized that the municipalities were being impacted in their ability to provide infrastructure for those new houses. So he made the statement that any municipality that was out money would be made whole. That hasn't happened yet. So we want to remind the minister, the current minister, Calandra, that we want to be made whole. If you want all these houses, and in Southgate, you can argue we're doing our bit. we've built a pile of houses. Well, we haven't, but the developer has, and we've accommodated them, and there's going to be a lot more coming, but we need infrastructure to accommodate all that growth. Be it recreation, pipes in the ground, new roads, new services, paramedics, all the rest of it. You can't just build houses and walk away. You got to put all the other pieces in place, and that takes money, and that's what development charges are for. So you can't take away our development charges and then tell us to build more houses. So
somehow I think you'd have the mayors of West Gray, Town of Blue Mountains, Meaford, Owen Sound,
yep,
all saying amen.
Exactly. So, and it's just, I don't like to say it, but it's downloading. That's what it is. Pure and simple. That's all it is. And so we want to see a stop to that, and we want to be made whole for what we've lost.
Sure. And these are not small amounts, as you indicated either. These are millions of dollars.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well, next time it sounds like we'll have an interesting conversation about what they said or didn't say.
Well, I mean, I know how these things go by, I've been around the track a couple times now. I know how these things go. There'll be a lot of hemming and hawing and saying, yes, we understand. Yes. We agree that, something that needs to happen. Next.
Just out of curiosity, you got 15 minutes?
You have 15 minutes to make your case. Yep.
Right.
And you know what? I get it. If I'm the minister on the other side of the table, time after time after time after time, yeah, it's a tough role to play as well, I'm sure. But if enough of us make the same story, then it's got to resonate. And a lot of times, too, the key piece is to understand who is the real person that you need to contact on the other side of the table. Which staffer is it that you need to be aware of, and make sure that one gets your card and you get their card so that you can follow up. And because, as I say, they take a lot of these meetings. I don't know how many they do over the course of a conference, but it's a lot. And so you need to stand out. And how you do that can take many forms.
Oh, for sure. And actually, I think that there are 444 municipalities across Ontario.
Yep.
And how do you stand out? That's a question for you to do. But
yeah.
You make the important point is make sure they take your card and you get their card.
Right. And you need to follow up. It's imperative. You need to follow up and say, hey, we met with the minister and yourself at the Roma conference, and you mentioned this. And so we just want to assure you that we haven't forgot what you said or didn't say. And our issue hasn't gone away at this end either. And we're supportive of the government's goal of more housing because we recognize it's a supply and demand thing. There's not enough supply and there's too much demand. So, but as I try to make the point, and that's how I think Southgate can stand out, we have very much done what we need to do. We have a developer that has been very good to work with. He has built house after house after house. And so, we've done our bit. And come on, let's play ball here.
Sure. Well, with that, Brian, we're going to take a quick break and come right back because there's more to come. I'm David Shearman. This is Politically Speaking, and just stay tuned.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Hi, I'm David Shearman, host of Politically Speaking. Join me for my next show, where my guest will be the Warden of Grey County, Brian Milne. Politically Speaking on Rogers TV. Hi, and welcome back to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest is Warden Brian Milne of the County of Grey and also Mayor of Southgate. Brian, good to have you.
Thank you, David. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're in your warden's office, right?
I am. Yep.
Yeah, and the you can see all the view and everything.
It's wonderful. You can see right. You could probably. I think I can probably see Georgian Bluffs from here.
Yep.
Probably so. Yeah. No. It's this is a great office, I have to say, and I don't call it my office. It's the warden's office. So
The warden's office. Yes.
I love it. I love it. Yep. There has to be some perk to this.
And it's a little dressed up simply because it's the place where you would meet and greet dignitaries and hold meet. It's a meeting office. It's a functional office.
It's a working office, shall we say?
Yeah. You don't have piles of papers sitting around.
Well, as my my office manager at home would tell you, I don't have the most thorough organizational skills, but fortunately here at the county, Kayla Ryer is she's the admin assistant or executive assistant for the CAO and the warden, and she does a tremendous job. And Lord knows I need it because as I say, I'm not the most organized person in the planet. So she does a wonderful job of keeping me on track.
Well, I have to say, we deal with Kayla when we do the scheduling for this show. And yes, you're quite right. She does. So a shout out to Kayla Ryer, who's the executive assistant to the CAO and warden. And I'm reading her title right on my screen. So
there you go. There you go. And you know what? I have to give a shout out to her son, Cohen, as well. I mean, it was all over the Sun Times and the, I don't know, whatever other publication, but it was her son that raised all that money by doing the drawings for the hospice up at Chapman House.
Oh, and, right.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool. I thought, well, I know his mother.
Well, you know, you always wonder when a child who does something like that is quite remarkable for his age.
Oh,
where they'll be in 20 years, you know?
Yep. Yep. Prime Minister, I would say.
Or maybe warden.
Well, he could start with Prime Minister and work his way up to warden.
And stop at Premier in the middle.
Yeah, okay.
All right, enough of that falderall. Let's get down to something a little more serious, and that's the budget. Where are we at in the budget for the county?
We are currently, and we've approved the budget last week. We approved the bylaw, and the increase to county taxpayers is 6.3% over last year's budget, and which is remarkable considering all the pressures that have been identified on various things that the county does. We started at an increase of 12.3, I think it was, something like that. And over the course of a handful of meetings, we whittled that back down to 6.2, which is still a significant amount. But given the pressures that the county is under things as simple as buying a new snowplow truck. I mean, it's just unreal what the cost of this stuff is and the cost of keeping it running, wages and everything else. I'm quite satisfied with 6.2. But as I said to the council right from the get-go, and it seems like most council do it the same way, they look at that percentage and they fixate on that. But I tried to get the council to not think about the percentage, at least at the start. Think about what does the community need and what do they want? And think about how we can deliver those services the best of our ability, and then see, well, where does that leave us with a percentage increase? Because there was no two ways about it. It was going to be an increase. And so I think for the most part, they did that. But at the end of the day, they come back to what is that percentage? And 6.2, as I say, is significant. And I get it that there's a lot of ratepayers in the county that's gonna smart a little bit, but we are a rich community, and if we're going to stay building this community, we need to invest in it. We can't continue to kick the can down the road. Last year, the county put a budget increase of, I think it was 1.5 or something like that, which in hindsight was ludicrous. We should have never kept it that low, because lots of projects got kicked down the road, and they only get more expensive and more complicated the more you ignore them. So you might as well deal with them up front. And one of the major things that was pulled out, well, there was two. One was the gray transit, which I struggled with that one, to be honest. The council decided to pull our funding, basically most of our funding, or all of our funding, when I say our, Grey County's funding, out of the Grey Transit system. And that left only the money that the province was investing in the system. So it was $500,000 come out of our budget. And so now we've asked staff to rejig the system to run with just the provincial funding. And so the system is not going to look like what it does now. It is not going to be able to serve people the same way as it does now. And I understand that there are a limited number of people that use the system, but the people that are using the system, it's very important to them to get to a job, to get to medical, to get to family, whatever. They need that system. And if we gut the system, it becomes unusable for a lot of people. And then it's just a spiral down to it's gone. And because that's what happened with Greyhound and Grey Coach before. They just kept cutting the routes, cutting the frequency until finally people didn't use it anymore, and then it's over. So that one, I struggled a lot with that one. But anyway, that is council's decision, not mine, thankfully. So that's one of the major things they decided to do. And the other was right at the very end, last week, a motion came forward to pull the funding that county council had considered, not committed, but had considered $10,000 a year to Chapman House to give them some bridge funding until they got another source of funding themselves. And that funding was that resolution to remove that funding found support from the council. And I was very sorry to see that one happen too, because as anybody that has had to deal with Chapman House directly will know, they provide a very, very good service up there. And I didn't like to see that funding go by the wayside, but nonetheless it did. And again, it's not my decision, it's council. So I support council's decision, but it was a tough one to see.
Sure. And I think it also points up or reminds us that funding decisions around healthcare are complex and not what we think. Chapman House is a good case in point, that we're dealing with operational funding, and the province doesn't provide operational funding for end-of-life care.
They do not.
They provide
do not.
The same as hospitals. They provide operational, but they all provide operational services it's operations. They provide operations for hospice and so on, and for our hospitals, but they don't do capital.
Right.
Unless it's big.
It beggars the mind to understand why, and it's been like this for a lot of years, the property taxpayer is paying for things that really should be paid for by the income tax. Healthcare, like about 30% of your municipal tax bill goes to healthcare or people resources of some kind, and most of it is healthcare. Whether it's hospice, whether it's hospital, whether it's paramedics, whether it's social services, housing, all that kind of thing should never have been put on the property tax, but they have. And Ontario is very unique in that respect because a lot of other jurisdictions do not do that. And it's downloading, plain and simple. That's all it is. And, the provincial government, and it's gone through many colors of stripes. They all do the same thing. They're happy to download stuff onto the property taxpayer and then say, oh, look at what the good job we're doing here at the province. Well, if you let everybody do what they're supposed to be doing, then I would have lots of money to fix the roads, to put the pipes in place, build the arenas, all that kind of stuff. If the province would look after what they're supposed to be doing, which is King's highways now, hospitals, hospices, those kinds of things. But there's been, and we talked about delegations just before the break. There's been lots of delegations talking about that.
Yeah,
to no avail.
But I think you're also talking about understanding the division of powers.
Absolutely.
And it gets muddy.
It'd be like the Prime Minister saying to the Premier of Ontario, well, you know what? We really think that national defense is important, but you in Ontario, you need to pay for all the soldiers that work in Ontario. Well, that's, I don't know. I don't know how long this show goes, but we haven't got enough time here today to sort that one out.
Hey, you're on a good rant, Brian. That's fine. That's fine. But there goes the Meaford base to carry your point a little further.
Right? Yeah.
Could Grey County fund the Meaford tank range?
Well, we pay for the road. We pay for the road that goes to it, and we get precious little from the Prime Minister to fix that road. So, you tell me what I'm supposed to do.
Well, next time there's a blizzard, ask for an armored personnel carrier.
Well, actually, it's funny you mention that because isn't this some kind of anniversary that the Army was called into Toronto a number of years ago?
That's right, it is.
Mel Lastman was the mayor at the time, and he called the Army in, and I'll tell you, Toronto is still being ridiculed about that. So if there's one thing that we can do very well here at Grey County, it is manage storms. We do that very well. Our staff do a great job.
And just to remind people, the cost of a snowplow has exceeded, is far, far more than your average pickup truck.
Oh. Yep. If you can get one. I think the wait time is like 2 years to get a new plow truck now. Something like that.
Down in front of the county's Chatsworth garage, there is a massive snowplow. I marvel at it every time I look at it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that fit on a bulldozer. That was mounted to a bulldozer. Yeah. And that was how they used to clear the roads. They just go down the center of the road to clear the drift.
Big old V plow, and snow went flying both sides.
Yeah. And that's from another era.
Oh, very much so. I don't know. I dare say probably back in the 60s, 70s, maybe.
Yeah. Because they are very high-tech devices now. They are tracked. They are. They're almost smart because they know when to apply the things like salt and that kind of thing. Still need an operator.
Oh yeah, but it's a very high-tech piece of equipment now. It's not just bull strength like that old plow in front of the Chatsworth Depot. It's very much high-tech now. There's screens and levers and buttons, and I don't know how one operator can keep track of it all, because I'd be taking mailboxes off and guardrails and vehicles, and I'd have the thing in the ditch. I'm half a mile down the road, but these operators are very skilled at what they do.
Yep. Yeah. And then ambulances are the same thing. Our ambulances are very unique, high-tech pieces of equipment. They don't look like it, but they are. And the lead time on those, again, is measured in years.
Yes, it is. And there's only one supplier now. It's very expensive.
Really? Yep. There's only one supplier in Canada?
Yep. Well, one supplier that's been approved. See, we can buy an ambulance from whoever we want as long as it's approved by the provincial government. And up until, I think it was about a year ago or more, there were two suppliers. There was one in Ontario and there was one in Ohio, I think. Those two companies merged. So now there's one supplier. So you have two choices. for how you want to pay for an ambulance. It's take it or leave it. And so they give you the price and you have to take it. So I said to Kevin McNabb, our director of paramedic services here, it'd be interesting to see what the horse and buggy community could do to slam one together in a hurry in one of their shops down in Southgate. I dare say it'd be a lot cheaper and it'd probably be just as good, the actual box. But of course, they're not approved to do that, so we can't use them. But
That's very true. That's very true. That's very true. Which reminds me, always good to mention that the horse and buggy community, as you said, or the Amish or Mennonite communities on these days, their horse and buggies can be on the roads too. So be doubly careful.
absolutely.
Be very careful because I hate to say it, but we may have snow tires, but those horses are on steel shoes.
Yeah, and they can slip and slide just like your vehicle can. So be very careful, be respectful around them. Horse is not a vehicle, so it can spook in a hurry.
Now, which leads me, you're a farmer, so you'll know the answer to this, I trust. What's the best way to pass one of the horse and buggies?
You know what? What I tell people is to treat a horse and buggy much like you'd treat a cyclist. Slow down and don't get right up to behind them because you don't know what they're going to do. And when you've got room, go right out onto the opposing lane and pass that. We leave as much room between you and the horse as you can, because as I say, that horse, could step out in front of you or turn or whatever. And you might think you're in the right, but at the end of the day, the buggy's going to lose. And you're going to feel bad if you could have taken the opportunity to slow down and give them as much room as you can, particularly on a gravel road. When you're meeting a horse and buggy, slow right down because, stones get thrown by tires. If a horse gets hit with a stone, they can spook. And, if it's a young person or an inexperienced driver on that buggy, the horse might get away on them and bad things can happen. So give them lots of room and be respectful.
Sure. Well, that's really helpful, Brian, because on my commute, my running around Grey County, I see a lot of horse and buggies. Yep. So I always try to give them as much room as I possibly can, but that's great advice.
Yep.
Great advice. Well, let's move on to the Early Learning Hub, which is another county project. What's that all about?
It's a resource for early learning educators. And what we found over the years, particularly for childcare providers that do this on their own in their own home, they don't have a lot of resources or in terms of ideas, support, that kind of thing. And so the idea was formulated, and it's now up at the Sydenham campus. We have a resource there where people can get together. Early childhood educators can get together and talk and see what works and what's not working. The other half of the resource is a very large room, and I was up there a while ago, and it's chock full of games, toys. It's a library, really, is what it is. There's books. That's what made me think it's a library. You can borrow various things from that place because, as a grandfather now, I know kids, when they're really small, they don't have a real long attention span, sort of like me when I get tired. So it's fun to interchange stuff that the kids will play with day to day, and it keeps them interested, keeps kids' attention. And so it's been a well-used and well-received resource for the early childhood educators in the county.
And that's open to any of the early childhood educators?
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Well, it's a great service the county's offering then.
Yeah. No, and as I say, it's been well-received, and it provides another outlet for those that are or another resource for those that are thinking about getting into the child care business at their own home. You know, they got someone there they can go and meet with and talk about, well, what are some of the things I need to be doing? What are the challenges? That kind of stuff. And so, because childcare is another service that I would argue that the province should be doing, but anyway, we're doing it. There's the demand far outstrips the resources or the places. In fact, the county, I believe, we are authorized to provide somewhere in the neighborhood of 750 places for children, but we only can provide a little over 500 because we don't have the staff. There are not the staff contingent to provide the service. So it's this resource at the Sydenham campus is the hub. It's another attempt to try to show people that this is an option. It's a fulfilling option for someone that maybe wants to stay at home and do daycare themselves.
Mm-hmm. And home daycares are certainly an appropriate form of childcare.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Right. Yep. Now, I understand that with the winter blanket of snow that has arrived, it has blanketed Grey Roots, and they have closed for a period of time. What's that all about?
Well, again, that was a result of sort of a result of the budget discussions. I don't want to say too much, but the saw-off was that we would see Grey Roots close for the month of January. And the numbers of Grey Roots typically drop off in January anyway. So it also fit well with regenerating the chambers for the various exhibits. And so to save money, it was decided to close Grey Roots for casual visitors in January. Now, if someone wants to use the archives, they can make an appointment with the archivist and they can come and use the resource for sure. Hopefully in the future, that'll change and we can go back to being open full time because if you've never been, I know you've been there, David, on many occasions, I'm sure, but if you've never been to Grey Roots, you really do need to go and see it. It's a beautiful, beautiful facility, and there's very knowledgeable people there that volunteer and work at the museum, and they do a great job.
Well, indeed, it's one of those gems we have here in Grey County, and yep. There's so much that's different, so much that's changed. If you're not an automobile enthusiast, there's the whole garage setup, and if you land it at the right time, they'll even probably let you turn a wrench.
They may, and if you're really lucky, they'll have the steam traction engine out, and they'll be boiling some potatoes or something like that, or corn or something like that in the fall. It's a really cool spot for anyone, but specifically for people that are new to the area and maybe don't know the history of the area. It really does give people a good perspective on where we've come from and maybe a hint of where we're headed. And it's not just limited to when the settlers came. There's lots of information there about pre-settlers, the Indigenous First Nations folks that were very much a part of this area. There's a lot of history there about all of that part of our history as well. So it's a really it's a great spot, and I'm a big supporter. So as I say, it stung a little bit to see it closed for a month, but if that's the saw-off we have to do, that's what we have to do.
Will they be renovating some exhibits as well?
Yes. Yeah, I'd be giving it away if I told you what they were. Okay, let's be honest, I don't know. But anyway, yes, as I say, it did line up well with the regenerating of the chamber, of the galleries rather. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's kind of, I know those buildings outside are better done in the summer.
Well, they're not open in the winter, the buildings. but the main building, of course, is. But yeah, the village, Morston Village, is it's a really cool area to see in the summertime, and the volunteers make it come alive, and it's just a great spot to take the family.
Oh, indeed. Indeed. I've got my own set of stories about Grey Roots and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's a great place. So looking forward to.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to this summer where they're going to hopefully have a steam model train on a piece of track that they're going to loop around the inside of the Morston Village. So I'm looking forward to that.
I heard that mentioned a few years ago, but never not heard anything since. But hey, we can't get the trains back into Owen Sound, but we can get them to Grey Roots.
Exactly.
Bonus.
Exactly.
Bonus.
There you go. Yep.
Bonus. Yeah.
Yep.
So we've got about 2 minutes left. So I just wanted to quickly cover a couple of things. What's next at Grey County? Where do you see what's going to be happening over the next month or so at the county?
What's going to be happening? Well, what's going to be happening is we're going to be before the end of January, I'm hopeful, we're going to release the contract to build Rockwood Terrace. We're going to do that. And one of the other interesting things, and it's not because it's West Grey or West Grey is getting any favors, but we are going to be building a new ambulance bay or building in West Grey as well. West Grey is building a new police services building. And so we, as a county, had an opportunity to kind of piggyback onto that project. And the piece of land that West Grey purchased in Durham for their purposes will allow Grey County to build a new paramedic station, which is very badly needed in Durham because the one at the current hospital is badly out of date and it's too small. So those are two projects that I'm looking forward to getting going. And what else? Oh, I don't know. Lots of good stuff. There's always good stuff going on in Grey County. Hopefully we'll see a little more sunshine. I thought it was going to happen today, but maybe not. They say tomorrow maybe, but yeah.
Brian, we will have to see because we're just about out of time. And I wanted to thank you for being a part of Politically Speaking. And hey, we've got reason to come back again. So look forward to hearing from you the next time.
Well, I sure appreciate the opportunity again, David, and I look forward to the next chat.
And thank you, friends, for being a part of Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. And oh, yes, we'll talk again.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
After a night out with your friends, not having a plan for a safe ride home can leave you in a bad spot. You can end up riding in a police car, an ambulance, or a